Cloris Leachman was a one-of-a-kind actress, remembered by Mel Brooks and many others as truly irreplaceable. She appeared in some of his funniest films and became a legend in American entertainment. But her life and career were not just about laughter, they were full of bold choices, controversy, and moments that changed Hollywood forever. One of her most talked-about moments came in 1971 when a single movie scene caused one of the biggest scandals in American cinema history. The movie was banned in many cities, including Phoenix, Arizona, where it was completely illegal to show. Texas followed with its own ban, and religious groups called the movie poison for young minds. The issue became so big that federal courts had to step in to protect free speech. But in the middle of all the outrage stood Cloris Leachman, who refused to apologize. She famously said, "What am I doing apologizing to you? Why am I always apologizing to you?" She wasn't just acting, she was standing up for truth, for women, and for changing morals in America. Cloris Leachman was born on April 30, 1926, in Des Moines, Iowa. She was the oldest of 3 girls. Her father, Buck Leachman, ran the Leachman Lumber Company, which he started with his brother in 1921. But when the stock market crashed in 1929, everything fell apart. Cloris was just 3 years old when her family began struggling through the Great Depression. Their business nearly collapsed, and money became a daily worry. The family lived in a small home near Roosevelt High School. Even though Cloris dreamed of learning piano, her family couldn't afford one, so her mother drew piano keys on a piece of cardboard, and Cloris practiced on that. It showed her determination and creativity from an early age. When she was 11, Cloris joined the Des Moines Community Playhouse and acted in a play called Wilderness. Her talent and timing stood out immediately. She worked babysitting jobs to stay involved in the theater, never missing a single rehearsal even when her father's business was barely surviving. The Playhouse became her second home, and years later, they created an award in her name to honor young actors with the same passion and dedication she showed as a child. By the age of 17, Cloris had her own radio show, giving household tips to women across Des Moines. That wasn't even her first job, she had started working on a children's radio program when she was just 11. Between acting and radio work, she developed strong timing and delivery skills that would later help her become one of the most awarded actresses in television history. Cloris eventually tied with Julia Louis-Dreyfus for the most Emmy wins by a woman, 8 in total. In 1946, her life changed dramatically when she entered the Miss Chicago beauty pageant. She didn't even wash her hair for the competition, but she won anyway. That victory took her to the Miss America pageant in Atlantic City. Standing 5 feet 4 inches tall, she made it to the top 16 finalists after performing a piece from Grieg's Piano Concerto. She didn't win the title, but she received something more valuable, a $1,000 scholarship, which was a lot of money back then. For a girl who once practiced piano on cardboard, it meant everything. She used that money to move to New York City and study acting. In 1947, she became part of the first class at the Actors Studio, studying under the famous director Elia Kazan, alongside future stars like Marlon Brando. Out of 700 people, only 50 were accepted, and she was one of them. Kazan later cast her in a Broadway play called Sundown Beach. Brando even asked her out a few times, but she turned him down because she thought his apartment would be messy, and she said he flirted with everyone. Her training at the Actors Studio shaped her entire approach to acting, focusing on honesty and emotion. In 1950, she earned a role in Come Back, Little Sheba, and critics loved her. Soon after, Katharine Hepburn personally invited her to audition for As You Like It. Cloris had to choose between staying in a successful Broadway play or taking a risk with Hepburn's production. She chose the risk, and it paid off. The show ran for 6 months on Broadway and made her one of the most talked-about young actresses in New York. Her movie debut came in 1955 with Kiss Me Deadly, where she played a mysterious woman named Christina Bailey. The opening scene, where she appeared barefoot and terrified, shocked audiences and became one of the most memorable film openings in history. The movie was made in just 21 days on a $425,000 budget and later earned nearly double that. It was so controversial that the U.S. Senate even discussed whether it was harmful to young viewers, but decades later, it became a classic and was added to the National Film Registry. In 1953, Cloris married producer George England, who was already married when they met. They eventually had 5 children together. Balancing motherhood and acting was not easy in a time when most women were expected to stay home. But Cloris didn't stop working. She introduced her husband to Marlon Brando, and the two men became close friends and business partners. Cloris and George often vacationed with Brando on his private island in Tahiti and socialized with stars like Steve McQueen, Paul Newman, and Judy Garland. In 1970, Cloris joined the Mary Tyler Moore Show as Phyllis Lindstrom, Mary's nosy, opinionated landlady. The character was bold, funny, and unlike the typical TV women of that time. Cloris made Phyllis unforgettable, winning back-to-back Emmy Awards in 1974 and 1975. Her success led CBS to give her a spin-off series, Phyllis, in 1975. The show followed her character moving to San Francisco after her husband's death. It tackled serious topics like teenage sexuality, which caused controversy, but Cloris's performance earned her a Golden Globe Award for Best Actress. Unfortunately, the show faced several tragedies when 2 older cast members died during production, and it was eventually canceled in 1977. In 1973, Cloris starred in the TV movie A Brand New Life, playing a middle-aged woman who finds out she's pregnant after 18 years of marriage. Her performance was raw and emotional, and it won her another Emmy. Many people later confused the date, thinking she won in 1975, but it was for this 1973 film. Years later, she had a funny moment at the 2006 Emmy Awards when her dress ripped right before she went on stage, and someone had to quickly sew it back together. From 1986 to 1988, she joined The Facts of Life as Beverly in Stickle, replacing Charlotte Ray, her real-life college roommate from Northwestern University. The two shared similar traits, both strong-willed and a bit bossy but always lovable. Even though the show was losing popularity, it still managed to get renewed for one last season, and Cloris's addition gave it new life. In 1983, Cloris starred in The Woman Who Willed a Miracle, playing May Lemke, a foster mother who refused to give up on a blind and disabled boy named Leslie Lemke. The story was true and deeply inspiring. The boy, who had cerebral palsy and couldn't walk or talk for years, turned out to be a musical genius. Cloris's performance in that film was one of her most moving ever, winning 4 Emmy Awards, a Peabody, and a Christopher Award. She later said in her 2009 memoir that it was the best acting she ever did. But one of the most defining moments of her career came in 1971 with the film The Last Picture Show. Cloris played Ruth Popper, a lonely middle-aged woman in a small Texas town who begins an affair with a much younger man, played by 21-year-old Timothy Bottoms. She was 45 at the time and appeared completely nude in one of the most honest, emotional scenes in movie history. It wasn't just the nudity or the age difference that shocked people, it was how real it felt. In the scene, after being intimate, Ruth breaks down crying, showing her pain, loneliness, and vulnerability without any attempt to look glamorous. The moment was powerful and deeply human. Director Peter Bogdanovich later said Cloris didn't care about being naked, she only cared about showing the truth. The scene became one of the most talked about moments in American cinema. Across the country, reactions were extreme. Many cities banned the movie, calling it immoral, but critics praised her bravery. Her performance won her the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress in 1972. After that, Cloris continued to take on bold and unexpected roles. She worked in both comedy and drama, appearing in Mel Brooks classics like Young Frankenstein and High Anxiety, where her humor and timing were unmatched. She also acted in Spanglish, Raising Hope, and Malcolm in the Middle, where younger audiences discovered her all over again. Her ability to move from dramatic roles to comedy made her one of the most versatile actresses of her time. In her personal life, she faced challenges too. Her marriage to George England eventually ended in divorce in 1979, and she later admitted they had a complicated but deep bond. One of their sons, Brian, tragically passed away in 1986, which devastated her. But Cloris kept going, focusing on her work and her other children. Even in her later years, she stayed active and sharp. She joined Dancing with the Stars in 2008 at the age of 82, becoming the oldest contestant ever on the show. Her humor, energy, and fearless attitude made her a fan favorite. She kept acting well into her 90s, proving that age couldn't stop her passion. Cloris Leachman passed away on January 27, 2021, at the age of 94, leaving behind a legacy of more than 7 decades in film and television. She won 8 Emmy Awards, an Academy Award, a Golden Globe, and countless other honors. But more than that, she left behind the image of a woman who was never afraid to be real, funny, flawed, emotional, and brave. Her career broke barriers for women in Hollywood. She played characters who weren't perfect but were always honest. Whether she was making audiences laugh in Mel Brooks's comedies or cry in heartbreaking dramas, Cloris Leachman showed that true acting isn't about glamour, it's about truth. Mel Brooks said it best, she was irreplaceable. Through hard times, family struggles, controversy, and fame, Cloris Leachman never stopped being herself. From practicing piano on cardboard as a little girl to standing up for artistic freedom in Hollywood, she lived a life filled with courage, creativity, and laughter. Her story reminds us that even in a world that often tries to silence women or make them fit into certain roles, being yourself, boldly and unapologetically, is the most powerful act of all. In 1973, Phoenix, Arizona banned the film completely, saying it broke obscenity laws. Drive-in theaters had to stop showing it, and Columbia Pictures was forced to pull the movie from release. The studio had to go to court just to win the right to show it again. Soon after, Texas followed with its own ban, and in Louisiana, the local district attorney tried to stop screenings as well. The outrage wasn't only about Cloris Leachman's bedroom scene. Many people were also furious about the strip scene with Sybil Shepherd. Religious groups called the entire movie poisonous and claimed it would ruin morals and corrupt the youth. But in the end, the federal courts ruled that the film was not obscene. That decision became a landmark moment for free speech in American movies. The fight was bigger than just one film, it was about the clash between the strict morals of the 1950s and the new openness of the 1970s. Then came the Oscars. On March 27, 1972, Cloris Leachman walked onto the stage to accept her Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress. Everyone expected a short and polite thank you speech, but she didn't give them that. Instead, she said she was having a wonderful life and that it wasn't over yet. She began thanking people from her childhood, her piano teacher, her dance teacher, and her father, Buck Leachman, who had paid for her lessons during the hard years of the Great Depression. The audience clapped warmly because they understood how much that meant. Then her voice cracked as she spoke about her mother's imagination and strange sense of humor. It wasn't a glamorous Hollywood speech, it was raw, emotional, and personal. Some critics later called it odd or awkward, but in that moment, Cloris showed the world exactly who she really was, sincere, passionate, and real. Behind the scenes, she was just as fearless. When director Peter Bogdanovich suggested using a body double for the nude scene, Cloris immediately refused. She said no one else could play that moment honestly. She wanted to show the truth of her character, not a fake version. She asked to rehearse the scene, but Bogdanovich refused because he thought too much rehearsal would ruin its emotional power. That disagreement only made the performance stronger. There were rumors of tension on set, but Cloris later said every bit of it was worth it. She called the scene artistic truth. She believed Ruth Popper needed to be seen fully, both physically and emotionally, and that choice changed how Hollywood viewed middle-aged women in film. Her performance didn't just make movie history, it started conversations across the country. People weren't used to seeing a woman in her 40s expressing pain, loneliness, and desire so openly on screen. Churches protested, parents boycotted, and theaters were picketed. Cloris, once known as a family-friendly actress, suddenly became controversial. But she didn't care. What she did opened the door for other women to take on deeper, more realistic roles. The Last Picture Show became a turning point in American film. The old days of polite, hidden emotions were gone, and audiences were finally ready to see something real. Cloris didn't stop there. In 1974, she played the unforgettable Frau Blucher in Mel Brooks' comedy Young Frankenstein. Every time someone said her name, horses neighed in fear, a running joke that audiences loved. Her voice, facial expressions, and perfect timing turned her into a comedy icon. When she said, "Yes, he was my boyfriend," it made people laugh so hard that the line became legendary. Cloris had gone from heartbreaking drama to hilarious slapstick, proving she could do anything. In 1977, she starred in another Mel Brooks hit, High Anxiety, playing Nurse Diesel. Dressed in a tight black outfit with slicked back hair, she became one of the most terrifying and funny nurses ever seen on screen. Critics compared her to Nurse Ratched from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, but funnier. She didn't care about looking glamorous, she cared about making the character work. Every line she delivered was filled with energy and conviction. Decades later, Cloris continued to impress new generations. In the 2000s, she appeared on the TV show Malcolm in the Middle as Grandma Ida, a tough, rude, and unforgettable character. She won 2 Emmy Awards for her performance. One episode, Bride of Ida, became a fan favorite because of how dark and funny she was willing to go. She wasn't the sweet, gentle grandmother people expected, she was mean, manipulative, and hilarious. Fans loved her fearlessness. Then, in 2008, Cloris joined Dancing with the Stars. She was 82 years old, the oldest contestant the show had ever accepted. Producers rejected her twice, saying she was too old, but she didn't give up. The third time she applied, she got in. She rehearsed for more than 2 hours a day despite having asthma, high blood pressure, osteoporosis, and even a painful bunion. During one routine, she even lifted her leg above her head on live television, leaving the audience speechless. She made jokes, danced with confidence, and proved that age meant nothing to her. Cloris also brought her talent to voice acting. In 1999, she voiced a character in The Iron Giant, at a time when major Hollywood actors were just starting to take animated films seriously. She brought the same unique energy and emotion to her voice roles as she did to her live performances. She never held back and was always experimenting with new forms of acting. From 2010 to 2014, she starred in the sitcom Raising Hope, playing Mama, a wild, unpredictable grandmother. Even in her 80s, she performed physically demanding comedy scenes that many younger actors would have struggled with. She wasn't afraid to look silly or strange. Her only goal was to make the audience laugh and feel something. She even planned a one-woman stage show called Cloris, but she delayed it because she wanted to join Dancing with the Stars. Her career was still strong in her later years. She had plans to film in Berlin with Quentin Tarantino and Brad Pitt, proving that even top directors admired her. On her website, she proudly listed her real birth date, April 30, 1926. She never pretended to be younger. She told Johnny Carson during an interview, "I take outrageous roles, but I come here to show I'm not that person." She said she was just a simple woman from Des Moines, Iowa. That mix of confidence, humor, and humility made her unforgettable. Cloris Leachman broke every rule in Hollywood and laughed while doing it. She wasn't afraid of age, nudity, shame, or criticism. Whether she was crying in bed on camera, making horses neigh with a single word, or dancing on live TV at 82, she lived her life with fearless honesty. That's why people never forgot her. But behind her humor and courage, she also endured heartbreak. When she was pregnant in the 1950s, her husband, George England, betrayed her in the most painful way. One day, the phone rang. On the line was actress Joan Collins, who bluntly told Cloris, "I'm in love with George. He just left my place. What are you going to do about it?" Cloris, carrying their unborn baby, was devastated. The stress and heartbreak were too much to bear, and she lost the baby. Despite that, she stayed with George, and they went on to have 5 children together, trying to rebuild their lives. Joan Collins later ended the affair after realizing George was still sleeping with Cloris, even though their marriage was supposedly open. But the pain of that betrayal never truly left Cloris. The memory of losing her baby and hearing those cruel words over the phone stayed with her forever. Years later, tragedy struck again. In February 1986, Cloris's 30-year-old son, Brian England, was found dead in a small YMCA room in Manhattan. He had checked in using a California address, and the room cost only $22 a day. A maid discovered his body lying on the bed. The news devastated Cloris. Brian had been struggling with personal issues, and she later spoke about how hard it was to lose him. Despite her fame and success, she carried the weight of that loss for the rest of her life. Through every heartbreak and every victory, Cloris Leachman stayed true to herself. She faced criticism, scandals, and sorrow, but she kept working, kept laughing, and kept breaking barriers. She proved that being brave doesn't mean never being hurt, it means getting back up again. She lived over 9 decades with humor, honesty, and incredible strength. From her early days practicing piano on cardboard keys to standing up for artistic freedom and aging with pride, Cloris Leachman showed the world what it means to live fully and authentically. Her life wasn't perfect, but it was real, bold, and unforgettable, just like her. Cloris Leachman's life was full of both brilliance and heartbreak, courage and controversy. In 1973, things took a wild turn when the state of Phoenix, Arizona completely banned her movie, calling it obscene. Drive-in theaters were forced to stop showing it, and Columbia Pictures had to pull it from circulation. The studio fought back in court, determined to prove that the movie had artistic value and should be shown. Soon, Texas and Louisiana followed, with local district attorneys trying to block screenings. But this wasn't just about one film, it became a battle between the old, strict 1950s ideas of morality and the bold new freedom of the 1970s. Many people were outraged, especially over Cloris's emotional bedroom scene and Sybil Shepherd's strip scene. Religious groups said the movie would destroy moral values and corrupt young minds. But in the end, the federal courts ruled that the film was not obscene. That decision became a major turning point for free speech in cinema. Then came the Oscars. On March 27, 1972, Cloris walked on stage to accept her Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress. The audience expected a short, polite speech, but she surprised everyone. She spoke about her amazing life and said it wasn't over yet. She thanked her childhood piano and dance teachers, and her father, Buck Leachman, who paid for her lessons during the Great Depression. The crowd applauded, understanding how much that meant. Then she got emotional. Her voice cracked as she spoke about her mother's creativity and humor. It wasn't a perfect Hollywood speech, it was messy, real, and full of heart. Some critics called it strange, but it showed exactly who she was, honest and unfiltered. Behind the camera, Cloris was just as bold. When director Peter Bogdanovich suggested using a body double for her intimate scene, she flatly refused. She wanted the truth to show, not a fake version. She believed that if people saw the real emotion, they would understand the character better. Bogdanovich disagreed about rehearsing, thinking practice would make the moment feel less raw. The tension between them made the scene even more powerful. Though there were rumors of fights on set, Cloris said later it was all worth it. She believed she had captured artistic truth, and that moment helped change how Hollywood saw women, especially middle-aged women. Her performance caused a nationwide debate. People weren't used to seeing a woman in her 40s show vulnerability, pain, and desire on screen. Churches protested, parents boycotted, and theaters were picketed. Cloris, once seen as a wholesome family actress, was suddenly viewed as dangerous. But she didn't care. She had opened the door for other women to take on real, layered roles. The days of fake smiles and perfect lives were over, people wanted something real, and Cloris gave it to them. In 1974, she switched gears completely, starring as Frau Blucher in Young Frankenstein. Every time her name was mentioned, horses screamed in the background, a hilarious running joke. Her timing, her expressions, her delivery, it all became comedy gold. When she said, "Yes, he was my boyfriend," the audience roared with laughter. She had gone from emotional drama to perfect slapstick, proving she could do anything. Then in 1977, she played Nurse Diesel in High Anxiety. Dressed in a tight black uniform with slicked back hair, she became one of the most terrifying and funny nurses on screen. Critics compared her to Nurse Ratched from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, but Cloris didn't care about looks or vanity, she only cared about performance. Every line she delivered was full of energy and precision. Decades later, in the 2000s, Cloris appeared in Malcolm in the Middle as Grandma Ida, a mean, manipulative, unforgettable character. She was the complete opposite of a sweet grandmother. She was cruel, darkly funny, and absolutely brilliant. The role earned her 2 Emmy Awards, and audiences couldn't stop talking about her shocking and hilarious scenes. At 82, she made history again when she joined Dancing with the Stars in 2008. Producers initially refused to let her join because of her age, but she kept pushing until they said yes. Despite having asthma, high blood pressure, osteoporosis, and even a bad bunion, she rehearsed over 2 hours a day. At one point, she lifted her leg above her head on national television, leaving everyone amazed. She was funny, fearless, and full of life, showing the world that age could never define her. Cloris also became a talented voice actor. In The Iron Giant, 1999, she brought her same energy and charm to animation. She loved experimenting and bringing life to every project she touched. From 2010 to 2014, she starred in Raising Hope as Mama, a wild grandmother who did outrageous things most people her age wouldn't dare attempt. Even in her 80s, she was still doing physical comedy, proving that her creativity had no limits. She planned a tour with her one-woman show called Cloris, but postponed it to appear on Dancing with the Stars. She was also set to film in Berlin with Quentin Tarantino and Brad Pitt. Even in her 80s, top directors wanted to work with her. On her personal website, she proudly listed her real birth date, April 30th, 1926, never hiding her age. On The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, she laughed and said, "I take outrageous roles, but I come here to show I'm not that person. I'm just a simple woman from Des Moines, Iowa." But behind her humor, she had faced deep pain. In the 1950s, while she was pregnant, her husband George England had an affair with actress Joan Collins. One day, Joan called Cloris directly, saying, "I'm in love with George. He just left my place. What are you going to do about it?" Cloris was devastated. The stress caused her to lose the baby. Despite that heartbreak, she stayed with George, and they eventually had 5 children together. Joan ended the affair later, realizing George was still with Cloris. But the memory of that betrayal and the lost baby haunted her for life. Then tragedy struck again. In February 1986, Cloris's son Brian, only 30 years old, was found dead in a cheap YMCA room in Manhattan. There were bottles of ulcer medicine beside him. Some reports said it was those pills, others blamed cocaine. Brian had shown early promise as an actor in films like The Prowler and Crazy Mama, but addiction destroyed his life. Cloris said she did everything she could. She didn't want to treat him like a criminal, but she couldn't save him. Even in 2008, she admitted she thought about him every day. Her 2009 memoir revealed more shocking truths. She confessed to a wild one-night stand with actor Gene Hackman in 1974. They met in San Francisco, where both were filming different movies. She said there was instant chemistry, they didn't even finish dinner before heading upstairs. She described it as passionate and unforgettable. Around the same time, actor Ed Asner told her he loved her, but she jokingly said he needed to lose 32 pounds first. He lost 29 and then gained it back, and their playful romance faded. Throughout her career, people often criticized her for being a working mother. In the 1970s, it was rare for women with children to work long hours. Cloris had 5 kids but was constantly traveling for roles and shoots. Neighbors said she was more like a TV mom than a real one. Rumors spread that she left her babies with nannies for weeks, but Cloris didn't apologize. She believed women could be both mothers and professionals. In the 1980s, she shocked people again with her activism. She became a passionate vegetarian and animal rights advocate. She chained herself to slaughterhouses, wore a dress made entirely of cabbage and lettuce for a PETA campaign, and got arrested multiple times for trespassing. She even said eating meat was like committing murder. Fans who loved her as a sweet grandma couldn't understand her radical activism, but Cloris didn't care. She stood by her beliefs, no matter what anyone thought. Her achievements in television were unmatched. Between 1973 and 2006, she won 8 Primetime Emmy Awards and received 22 nominations. In one of her Emmy speeches, she criticized gender-based award categories, saying, "We don't have separate awards for tall and short actors, why for men and women?" Her bold words sparked heated debate in Hollywood. After her Oscar win in 1972, she expected more respect. But when she didn't win in 1975 for Young Frankenstein, she accused the Academy of being sexist, saying they only gave awards to pretty faces. Her comments caused controversy, but many actresses quietly agreed with her. In 1976, when she won a Golden Globe for Phyllis, she used her acceptance speech to criticize CBS, saying they made her character boring. The broadcast cut her off, and rumors began that the network blacklisted her. Even when she got her Hollywood Walk of Fame star in 1980, there was drama. She refused to kneel for the photo and complained that her star's location was terrible, right next to a souvenir shop. "I've won 8 Emmys and an Oscar, and they put me next to a junk store," she said. It took 20 minutes to convince her to pose. In 1984, she won a Daytime Emmy for The Woman Who Willed a Miracle. During her acceptance speech, she spoke about women's rights, equal pay, and the fight against harassment. She said, "This award is for every woman told she's too old, too loud, or too much." The audience was stunned, some cheered, others complained. CBS received hundreds of angry calls, but feminist groups hailed her as a hero. Even in her 90s, Cloris refused to slow down. In 2017, she appeared in American Gods and shocked everyone with a romantic scene opposite Ian McShane. She laughed afterward, asking, "Is that it? No tongue?" On her 90th birthday, her cake read "I'm 90, and she joked with the crew to line up for kisses, starting with the cute ones. She kept her humor alive until the end. From 2012 to 2020, she voiced the character Meryl on Bob's Burgers, adding her signature spark to the show. Fans loved her, calling her one of the funniest voices on TV. Even after knee surgery and health struggles, she stayed positive and funny. Cloris Leachman passed away peacefully on January 27, 2021, at her home in Encinitas, California. She was 94. Her final film, Jump, Darling, was released just before her death, and critics praised her performance. She had spent nearly 70 years making people laugh, cry, and think. After her death, stories spread about secret diaries, but what truly mattered was her fearless legacy. Actresses like Meryl Streep said Cloris gave women courage to age without fear. She proved that growing older could be powerful, not shameful. Back in 1971, when she bravely did that nude scene in The Last Picture Show, she changed everything. Playboy later published stolen stills from that scene, and Cloris stood by Sybil Shepherd as she sued. Their case changed Hollywood forever. It forced studios to get written consent from actors before releasing any nude images. That became law by 1975. Because of Cloris, actors gained real protection and respect. Through her laughter, pain, and rebellion, Cloris Leachman showed the world what it means to live without fear, to tell the truth, even when it costs you. She broke barriers for women, for older actors, and for anyone who dared to be different. She lived boldly, spoke honestly, and left behind a legacy that will never fade.